when you're starting to activate a program to give you better insights of what that funnel looks like for the accounts that you're going after. And that information will really allow you to do better segmentation, better prioritization, and then better media targeting when you get there. So it's really important to start thinking about kind of how you're going to dissect that and how you're going to break that down and what are the roles of each and every channel that you're using along the way. Content. It might sound weird to listen to I've been doing digital media, online advertising, whatever the hell you on at the risk of dating myself since the mid 90s, right? And I can't tell you enough, whether it's account-based marketing, whether it's early programmatic, whether it's search engine marketing back in early 2000s when it was brand new, or whether it was the first time we were placing online display banner ads on, publisher websites and nobody knew what the hell a banner ad was back then. But at the end of the day, the best targeting, the best segmentation, the best purchase media program is going to fall dead in its face if your content sucks. So you got to think about, again, going back to that empathy. Who are you trying to talk to and what do they want? Be relevant. Like, don't suck. It's pretty simple. Even when it comes to privacy, right? Like, I swear, like, privacy is things that people in the industry associations like the IAB, and overzealous political figures love to talk about it. But most consumers, if you give them something of value and the content and the offer is relevant, they don't care that you're tracking them. So again, just don't suck. And it's all okay. That doesn't mean you should go violate privacy policy 620 Sunday. I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying, like, as a proof point, it's really important to make sure you get that message right. And not just the message right, but think about the placement, where it is on the page, what that person's doing when they get there. What is the best way to get my message in front of them? And maybe I shouldn't jump too quick to the call to action. Maybe I should have some top of the level kind of message to catch their attention. A lot of social ads, a lot of times, more often than not, the image will catch their attention more than anything. Or a client will tell me, like, that's just the 6 cents programmatic stuff. It's not working right now. Well, you're doing all bottom of the funnel targeting. What you haven't done is use some of the functionality to do top of the funnel targeting and kind of move the deal flow along to get to the bottom so the bottom will perform that much better. And a lot of times, even if you're doing that, it's not working right because we don't have the right content map to get in stage. And so a lot of times for our clients, we'll go do a content gap analysis. Like, do we have the right content in each stage based on the companies we're trying to go after, based on where they are in their buy cycle and whether they're in market, and just make sure you have something relevant and of value to say to them when you're interrupting them in their lives, and everything will work that much better. Sales alignment. I kind of covered this already earlier, but again, the key message I want you to take away from this slide is don't just talk to sales at the beginning of embarking on an ABM program. You need to reconnect with sales based on whatever your sales cycle is. Like I said, for most of our clients, about a quarter on average. So every sales cycle, we sit back down with sales and be like, all right, the lead's better. How are you closing deals? How do you feel, MQL to SQL to opportunity to close ones looking like? What's the average contract value? How's it going? Is it going good? So don't just talk to them once up front and then go away. You need to re-engage them all the time. And not just when you're selling products before, like when I was talking about prioritizing and tiering, when I talked about leaders, followers, laggards. That's the other thing. Do it with your sales teams too, right? Because invariably, when you kick off an ABM program, there's going to be a handful of salespeople that are like super on board and doing it. So start with them. You don't got to make everybody participate in the sales side. If you get a couple people that want to bite, run with it. And then once they start doing it, you'll find some of the followers will be like, well, they took the risk and did it, and look, it's working. Like, I want in too. And so then you'll always have the laggards kind of hanging around, and some will start to adopt over time and some won't. But also in terms of, like I was talking about prioritizing, like how to start out of the gates, same thing holds true here. Just don't, it's not a one and done thing when you're trying to get sales on board with account-based marketing. Excuse me. So this is just a little slide, and there's a lot of different versions. A lot of different companies have something out there like this, but this just gives you a little flavor of how we grow. And one thing we think about here at BOL is this concept of brand demand in ABM. And so you can see from an ABM perspective, we're targeting very specific strategic accounts that we know we want to go after. We know who the buying committees are. We have the right content to go against them. There's a number of ABM tools that we'll use there. And a lot of that strategic accounts from that perspective, some of it is retargeting, site engagement, it's programmatic, display advertising, which is ABM ads. And then that should be feeding into your nurture stream. But then also, like, I'd argue paid social. Like, if I'm going into LinkedIn and you're buying specific company names and titles and people that represent your buying committee, is that not kind of like ABM light? Just because I'm not running it through a 6sense or a demand-based platform, I'd argue that's still more ABM than demand gen. So if you think about it in that perspective, so you have your certain ones there, and then from a demand perspective, you have your SEO, SEM, and I think we all understand, like with search, right? Like, I don't know the difference between the intent and the behavior yet, and I'm trying to test that out. And that's where some of the retargeting can come in. That's where content syndication can come in. And obviously, at that point, I'm still targeting some stuff, but I'm using more broader audience info, vertical firmographic information, less about very specific accounts where I'm trying to go one to one. And then, more at the top of that funnel, like, if you don't have your brand story right and people don't know who the hell the company is, all that other stuff in the bottom is not going to work as good. And all of this should be working together to get to a level of intent validation in the middle. And if you remember at the beginning of this talk, is making sure you're agile and you're very fluid in how you approach that. Because if I've got a very strategic account, Acme Corporation at the bottom, and all of a sudden sales is called on them, they're not converting, I'm not getting the triggers. Well, again, I don't want to go dark, because I know at some point down the road that closed loss can come back to be a closed one. And so what I might want to do is move that to the demand gen program and just lump them in a vertical targeted campaign to maintain a base level of awareness. And then when I talk about our targeted account list being dynamic and a fluid thing, well, if I'm doing some targeting with demand gen and all of a sudden I see certain number of people within a buying committee within a specific account that are downloading my gated asset, and then I'm using the de-anonymization functionality in the 6sense platform, and I'm seeing a percentage of my traffic coming from that account, and the signals are looking right, before I kick it to sales, let me take that account out of the demand gen program, move it into ABM, create the right content and targeting strategy, and test out their intent validation. And if I'm still seeing good buy signals, then I kick it to sales. So there should be fluid interoperability between the two. And so this is just to give you guys a flavor of the way we see the world, brand demand, ABM. You can see when it comes to going to, how these programs can help each other, enrich each other, with a brand level campaign, there might be 80,000 accounts that I might be going after, but I'm not targeting each of those 80 accounts in a one-to-one program. What I'm really trying to do is maintain a certain level of awareness. There's certain channels that are much better suited to, a level of authenticity and validity, and you're providing a resource and a recommendation that's going to make people move along that funnel. And then when I get to demand, I've reduced that 80K to some number that's relevant. I've changed my tactical approach of my messaging, how I'm targeting them, how I'm reaching those audiences. My KPIs are tiered along the way. And then when I get to the ABM, now I'm going after a very prioritized subset of that overall program, where I feel like I have my biggest opportunity to drive impact and pipeline. And then my messaging KPIs and what we do is move forward. And then you have to figure out what's right for you, because the bottom, when to move forward, I think is a really important thing. When do you move accounts from a brand campaign with a top of the funnel awareness to a demand campaign to an ABM campaign, and vice versa? And that's going to be different for each of you, and that's okay. But you need to really sort of drill in and find that sweet spot for your company. This just gives you a little flavor of the way we do all of that, and the way we go move into activation. Whether it's the content, whether it's the KPIs or the channels, everything when you think about from an account-based marketing should be stage-based. And if you get the measurement right, you'll know what content you want against that, because you'll have insight into what those audiences need or they're looking for at each stage of the funnel. And you heard two of our three speakers earlier. I think it was Karen and Jordan that were talking about that, authenticity. Like, what do they want? What are they looking for? What are they solving for? What are they doing online in the world of digital? What are they consuming? And how can you be part of that conversation in a value add kind of way? And then if you look at this channel part and see the circles are different sizes, because when we start looking at our media mix, the bigger the circle is a larger part of the budget allocation, but then it's also a factor of where is the role of it? And I want to make sure I put the right KPIs to it. So depending on the product, you might have non-branded keywords for paid search at the top of the funnel or SEO at the top of that funnel. Then maybe it's a remarketing display program. And then maybe it's a series of email follow-ups. Or if you have a drift or a conversational chat AI functionality on your website, that can be part of this equation too. And you start to plot the role of each one, because then you know how much money to put to them, and you know what's working and not working because you have the context of the role it has across everything else that's going on. So we talk about this idea of performance accelerated. What does that mean when you're starting to get to a level of, okay, now you've kind of done the foundational work and you've kind of started to really kind of crack this open and things are going good? What does it really look like for you going forward? And so if you do it right, these are the case studies that I was telling you about at the beginning. So we had Baker Hughes as a client. Their sales cycle was longer. And so it took us working with them over a 12-month commitment to achieve the results you see there. But they committed and they worked with us over 12 months. And it was a series of, let's blow up our targeted account list and throw it out the window. Let's redo the traits of our ICP. Let's change our targeting. Let's go get a different batch of content. And they worked with us over the course of that time period. So again, unlike a demand gen program or a lead gen program where you can kind of get a good litmus test of performance a couple of weeks out of the gate, like you're getting the lead volume or you're not, but you're not really seeing the value all the way through in terms of ROI. Since then now, they have reshuffled their whole marketing mix and they're applying a ABM philosophy across everything they're doing from a B2B perspective. And so they're actually optimizing search and social campaigns based on what's going on with the ABM platform. They've created better alignment between, the RevTech, the AdTech, and the MarTech stacks. And so it's all working a lot better. And then Lincoln Electric was another client. For them, it took 9 months because their sales cycle was a little bit shorter. But again, by doing it that way, in those steps that I showed you about the way you kind of go about optimizing a program, we were able to achieve this level of it. And this level of ROI, all of a sudden, you're now making your marketing an investment. It's not a cost center anymore. And we're able to commit to this, but we were only able to get to these results because we had to work with them and help them kind of go up the food chain and get organizational buy-in that this was long ball. This wasn't a short ball game. And then, so how can you succeed? And I know we're right about clock and I promised to get you guys out of here. As a summary takeaway for everybody, like I said, think about making sure you have the right skills for the raw expertise of hands-on keyboard, making sure you're thinking about it from empathy of your audience and you have the right creative strategists, the right content people involved, you have the right data analytics, and you understand the problems the audience that you're going after. Because again, the whole irony of account-based marketing is it's really people within those accounts that have problems that we're trying to sell shit to, right? And then think about your scale in your program from an extensibility perspective. Start small and then scale little by little iteratively based on what's working. You don't get to come in and drop a hand grenade and start big. It's much better, I think, in account-based marketing to start small and understand what's working. Have the right approach. For us, we use this brand demand ABM model, right? And that works really good for our clients to make sure we have the brand story right. We understand where the demand is coming from. And then based on the validation, the engagement that we're seeing, then that kind of drives who's in the ABM program and who's not invited to the ABM program. Make sure you have a process. This is just a screen grab of our process. We call it an audience first process. And again, it starts out with who are you targeting? Where are they in the world of digital, right? And then most importantly, you get to the bottom there. Why should they give a damn? Why do they care about your ad? Why do they want to click on that ad? Why should they de-anonymize themselves to you? And then also if they convert to your website, and they download that white paper, should you think through what you're going to say to them next? All right, they got the white paper. All right, you're going to drop them in your email nurturing program, but what are you going to say next to them? Like, what's that next comment or thing you want to say to them? What does that buying journey look like when you think about it from helping them buy? And then how are we defining the success of it? And then how do you improve success? And so this is kind of the way we kind of go about putting all that together. And then, I think who do you target? Again, is really important. You're going to get to this through the segmentation before you can go do the targeting. So that's really important to remember. This is a little bit just insight into the way we go about the world, from sales discovery, combining that with closed won analysis, looking at the geo targeting, intent analysis and mapping, getting the right content, the right language, all those kind of components of it. And to me, this slide is really about translating segmentation into purchasable targetable media. And that's something you guys got to think about, because just because you'll do the segmentation doesn't mean it directly correlates to something that the media team can go buy. And I think that's really important. And tomorrow we're going to have an interesting fireside chat where we'll have Kim and Lizzie sitting over here, our creative and media director, to sit up here and talk a little bit about, what is the interplay and the role of media and creative when you're trying to do all this kind of stuff? How do those teams work better together and support each other? And I think that's a really critical piece. And this is really about that process. And then obviously, where are they? I kind of hit that for you guys. Make sure you have a process for channel mapping. Don't jump right into channel planning and start mapping out your media until you've done a lot of the other homework first. And then even once you've done it, make sure you have a very structured way about going through that process so everybody knows where everybody is at any given moment, because otherwise you can kind of get lost along the way. Content. I hammered on the content, but you got to make sure you understand the value of your content. What is the role of that content? Where does it sit? When I make a first outreach to somebody and they see my search ad, what landing page do I send them to? If they engage in that landing page and I retarget them, what do I want to say to them then? Where do I want to send them? What's the important thing to say? I think even when you get into the bottom here, talking about things to consider, one of the things we debate with clients a lot about is, the whole ungated versus gated kind of like rabbit hole, right? If I gate it up front, I'm going to choke my volume, but I'm probably going to get better quality leads coming up the back end, but I might be missing opportunity. So one of the things we'll talk with a lot of clients about is doing a conversion rate optimization test, CRO. And is there an opportunity to maybe reverse gate? And you heard a couple of the speakers earlier today talk about this. Like, give them value, add value, be a trusted resource, be an advisor. That'll increase your authenticity, right? And then maybe if you then hit them with a retargeted gated asset, maybe they're such a fan of yours at that point, they would be more likely to convert. So is that a way to maintain the balance between not choking your volume, but still driving the right level of quality leads into the program? And again, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Some clients prefer to stick with gated up front. Some want to go all in on gated. But I think it's just stuff to think about of like, well, what's the right thing for you? What test can you create to see if you can find an opportunity for you? This slide is on measurement and the way we look at the world. I told you before, ABM takeaway, pipeline identification, pipeline acceleration. And if you do it right, you should really be using the ABM platform as like almost a single source of truth, where you can pull in all those engagement data. You can pull in alerts from Salesforce or Marketo or a HubSpot or your search program or your LinkedIn program. And you'll use that to create your tiered dynamic and ongoing prioritize and reprioritize, targeted account list. And that'll then feed all of your campaigns. Now, some of that might be programmatic display running within the ABM platform, but a lot of it doesn't have to be. And that data is available and valuable. And so you shouldn't stop with only using that data for the display ad that you're slinging through Demand Base of 6 cents and Terminus. Why not use that to optimize my search and social campaigns? Why not to use that to optimize my publisher direct programs? There's just so much you could do with that. And then you need to make sure that that follows all the way through to the nurturing program. If there's lead scoring, understanding the right time to hand that lead off to sales so you don't fall into a perception problem. And then make sure all of that insight is brought back into the fold so the AI within the ABM platform can constantly give you new recommendations. And then the green circle in the middle is really where that dynamic adapting and adjusting sort of comes from. And so that's it for me. And I tried to do that really quick for you guys. I told you to get you out of here. Does anybody have any questions for me? Or do you guys just want to get right to this? Come on, Bueller. Yes. Because I told you before, if you guys don't ask me questions, I will jump down on the floor like before and I'll put my MC hat on and I'll harass everybody to ask questions. But then I'm going to have to run back up here to answer questions as the speaker, which just knocked the wind out of me.
Do you find when you're going into clients, there's like a minimum amount of data available to even get off the ground with ABM? Like if you go in and their Salesforce is just a nightmare, you just like call me in a year once you clean up your data, or what's the minimum to get started on the data side?
Not to give you the classic agency answer,
It depends.
but it depends. Yeah. but we have run into that. That is
Yeah.
certainly a challenge. I mean, we've done them with some newer clients where we're like, all right, give us all your closed won data, and there's like 20 accounts, right? And then they're like, all right, let's do some sales interviews, and they have one sales guy, and you're like, okay. And so the way we go about it is we lead with first party data first and foremost, right? Because I think people have said for 20 years in digital that data is the new oil. Well, if you follow like what that overused cliche means, is your first party data is your most valuable asset, but it's crude oil. And what we're trying to do is power a digital marketing engine in the world of ABM. So I have to refine that oil. I have to enrich that data to feed the engine, right? And so what we'll do in those cases is, and that's when you might go out to a ThomasNet, a Tech Target, a Zoom Info, a Crunchbase, and go look for other third-party data to not purely run on that third-party data, because I think that's a mistake a lot of people have made for years, particularly in the B2C side, right? They're all addicted to that third-party crap. In B2B, we're lucky enough to not have to be addicted to it, but sometimes you need that to augment the sheer lack of data you have. And it's more about predicting and then testing and like validating where it is to win. So and then sometimes with clients, they'll have enough data, but it might take us 3 months of data wrangling and data mapping because they don't have it in the right format.
Yeah.
They don't have it in the right structure. Like one of our clients that we found, we had a client that makes protective gear. So like gloves and shoes and face shields for employees, and in a fast food restaurant or working a floor at a manufacturing facility. And we found that for them, they thought it was all about, their attributes was all about companies of a certain revenue size or a certain number of employee size. And we're actually like, actually, no, like your sweet spot is when you have companies of smaller in total revenue that you think. So not, 2 billion plus in revenue. We're talking 500 million to a billion. And they were like, oh, it's 2 billion up because we need a lot of employees. And we're like, actually, no, it's 500 to 1. And it's if we create a ratio of revenue to employee headcount. It's companies that were skewing a little lower on the revenue number, but in the revenue to employee ratio, they had more employees disproportionately to the revenue because that means they had to buy more protective shit for their staff. But we had to get that through augmenting third-party data because their first-party data was a train wreck. So sometimes, like, that's kind of how you go about kind of overcoming that. And there's nothing you can do about it. So that's why I kind of said it depends. I tried to give you a couple of just illustrative examples. Anybody else? Or you just really want to go straight to cocktails at this point? What? Sorry.
Here you go.
I wanted to take a photo of page 18, if you don't mind.
I gotta remember which one's 18.
Keep going, it's 22.
This one, yes. Should I photobomb my own slide?
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Sure. All right, guys. I know I went over a little bit. I tried to motor as quick as I can, and I know you guys all want to get upstairs for the fun part of the day. So I don't know if you want to jump in or just tell them all the plan. Right? We need the staff to. This is like super luxury, high-end, like ultra VIP stuff, so you can't get there on your own. When you get over the elevators, there'll be a staff member there to scan you to the floor because your room cards will not get you to the floor. So this is super cool, gang, and I look forward to going upstairs and having a cocktail with everybody. So thanks, everybody. I thought we had a good first day.